Mic'd up.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Highlights from Lowlifes. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend us your beers. That's all we ask. We are the Lowlifes. We're Rob Weber, Jeff Jones, Terry Lee, and myself, Rob Lanterman. We're looking forward to tonight's topic. We should have a pretty good time here. We're going to talk about baseball players that have disappointed us. So we've got our top five ready to go. And so we're just going to dive right into the topic. If you want to know our background, by now you know we've played ball together and drank online together during COVID. If you want to know more about us, make sure you check out the website, www.highlightsfromlowlifes.com. You can check out our Facebook page and all of that kind of social media stuff. And away we go. Let's start with Terry Lee. You're number five.
Well, hey everybody, how's it going? Well, my number five is a former San Francisco Giant that when I went to camp, and this happened twice, they were just raving about this kid. Just they could not stop talking about him, and I had to get a baseball signed by him because this was going to turn into I've got one of these balls by this guy. Well, he started the league. He was drafted. He started the league in I think it was April of 14. He was released on March of 15. His name is Gary Brown. He's an outfielder.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Gary Brown at camp at San Francisco Giants fantasy camp? They raved about him. They're like, this is like the new wonder kid. And I tell you, here's my hook. His signed baseball, is only worth $43, and the baseball itself is when you buy one, it's 20 official baseball. So that's the value. Webby.
All right. I looked at this in a little bit different way. Some people talked about long careers that were not up to snuff and things like that. But some of the ones that I've seen tonight are about injuries and tragedies and things like that cut people's careers short. So a lot of you guys know I'm a Cubs fan growing up, and there was a second baseman who came up with the Cubs in the early 60s. He replaced Don Zimmer as the second baseman for the Cubs when Zimmer was selected in the expansion draft by the Mets. His name is Ken Hubbs, and Ken debuted in 61, became the starting second baseman in 62. I believe he won the Rookie of the Year. He played the next season, 63, and in the off season, while piloting an aircraft in Utah, the weather got to the plane and it crashed, and he was killed after only 2+ years in the major leagues. He had made quite the impression with his teammates. He was the double play combination with Ernie Banks at the time, because Banks was still playing shortstop, and he knew Ron Santo and all the other Cubs, and he was going to be a fixture at that position for years. And then when the flash of a bulb, he was gone. So that is my number five pick, Kenny Hubbs of the Cubs. All right, Jonesy.
All right, my number five, I saw in person in college. Marty Brown, one of our co-hosts.
Marty's a big disappointment to you?
Yes.
Okay.
For so many reasons, but Marty Brown took me to a Stanford Cardinal game. And the starting pitcher was this high prospect that everybody was talking about. He was the man. He was going to be the man all through the major leagues. And he got drafted first by the Astros. even though there was a guy named Chris Bryant in the draft. They took this guy first. Never made the major leagues. Toiled and all around the minor leagues, never made the major leagues. His name was Mark Appel.
Mark
He was
Appel.
Stanford's big arm. He was supposed to be the horse of for the next decade, and he just couldn't figure it out and ended up with some injuries and just never made it.
So Jeff, he actually did make the major leagues.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
How come his stats never showed anything in the major leagues?
So in 2022, he made the Philadelphia Phillies and pitched 10 innings with an ERA of 1.7. So that was the big deal, is that he quit baseball in 2017, didn't play again till 2021,
Wow.
but made it back to the big leagues for 10 innings.
Oh, jeez.
And that was the big deal. And he did play in the minors last year. I don't know if he's retired yet, but it was kind of a big deal when he made the squad a few years ago. I know this because he was on my list.
Yeah. That leaves you, Robbie.
All right. My number 5 biggest disappointment came with a lot of fanfare, a player with a lot of flair, very colorful, had like a hop step thing that he did when he made a catch in the outfield. I think he was the second Japanese player to come over, a position player anyway, to come over to the U.S. and had a decent year with the New York Mets. And then the Giants thought they were going to get something out of Yoshi Shinjo,
Shinjo.
but Shinjo did not work out.
He had orange hair too.
He dyed his hair. He was very colorful. And you want to know, I mean, for a guy that was as fast as he was, he only stole 5 bases. And it was just kind of he was not kind of, he was a total disappointment across the board. I came to find out that he went on the Japanese version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and won the game, 10 million yen,
Jeez.
something along those lines. And now he's a successful fashion designer in Japan, got a big clothing line and everything. So anyway,
All right.
but as a player, boy, he flamed out. That was no good. So, all right then. Well, I guess that moves us on to number 4. Jonesy?
All right. This is he had a decent career. He had a solid career. But what I was disappointed about was how his career ended and what potential he held for the Giants. Mike Matheny. So this guy was a solid catcher for a couple different teams, had a decent 10, 12 years in the league. He wasn't lighting it up offensively, but he was well respected as a catcher and running his pitching staffs. He shows up for the Giants and has one really solid year, and everybody was expecting a lot of him. And in the middle of the second year with the Giants, he had a concussion with a play at the plate, and he never was the same again. I don't even think he played again. The concussion was so bad.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that was such a disappointment because I really thought that he was going to be very successful in helping the Giants, especially helping that pitching staff, and it was not meant to be.
Jeff, I remember he's quite the tough guy. I think he took that pitch off of his face and he waved off the trainer and walked down to first base.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I thought you meant with his. He took a ball to the face with his mask on, and he waved off, and then he walked. Says, I think waves off the trainer and goes to first base. So, okay, I think you'd better come out.
Webby.
Number 4.
You're right. I remember seeing this guy I was visiting family back east, and we all gathered around the TV because we were going to see an 18-year-old pitcher pitch his first game for the Texas Rangers in 1973. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Rangers were struggling with their attendance, and they needed something to excite the fans and get them to come out to the ballpark. So they called up their bonus baby, David Clyde, and they said,
Mhm.
David, you're pitching tonight against the Cleveland Indians. They sold out the stadium. Broadcasting rights for that evening's show went through the roof. Um, I believe he actually won the game at age 18. He beat the Cleveland Indians that night. But it was a classic case of rushing somebody to the major leagues. He got pummeled for the next 2 years, had some arm problems, eventually got dumped off on the Cleveland Indians, and was out of baseball by the time he was 24 with a total of 18 career wins. Um, his life was kind of tough after that. Had bouts with alcoholism and um, went through a couple of marriages, but ended up writing himself and living out a pretty good life in the construction industry. But this was a guy that was supposed to take the world by storm and just ended up being overwhelmed by the whole situation. So David Clyde's my number 4 pick. All right, Robbie.
All right, my number 4. Um, this was kind of a sad one and a weird one. Um, Came out in 2003. It was electrifying. 2004, 2005, made a couple of All-Star games. He was like 48 and 27 those first 3 years. And then for no particular reason, he seemed to have a little drop off the next couple of years and fell to like 22 and 27. Um, and then all of a sudden went from 6 and 18 and had an ERA was close to 9 from the next 3 or 4 years that he was in the league. And it was really unfortunate because he was a guy, his pitching style, he grew up in Alameda and he patterned it after our beloved Vita Blue. And he had that big high leg kick and he threw left handed and looked like the reincarnation of the young Vita Blue on the mound. And Dontrell Willis was just a spectacular guy to watch. He seemed genuinely like a good guy, played the game hard, smiled, loved every minute of being on the field. And for no particular reason, he just seemed to lose it. There's no like major history of injury or anything. It just went away and then it kept going further away and further away until it was out of reach for him. But yeah, that was a guy you were rooting for. That was a guy you wanted to see do well. And it was very disappointing to see Dontrell Willis just drop so quickly.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yep.
All the teammates liked him too because
Yep.
they thought he was genuine.
And he kept everybody in the league tried to give him another chance. I mean, teams kept him in the minors, the Giants included. A bunch of teams gave him a shot, and it just, for whatever reason, it never came back to him. So
Didn't he do broadcasting, or is he a
Yeah,
broadcaster?
yeah, he did some stuff for Fox for several years. He might even
Yeah,
still be
he
doing it.
he you up until you saw him on camera, you never knew he had eyebrows. He's the one that wore his base. He had the first flat brim cap over his
Oh, that's right.
eyebrows.
Yeah,
I think he
yeah.
tucked his ears in too.
Well, looks like Terry's been afflicted with visual aids.
Well, I am from the 1900s. This is my check. This is my checkbook, and this is still not as flat as Dontrell's. It's not as flat as Dontrell's the bill of his cap, or the amount of money in the checking account either.
Getting Terry to start his number 4 is going to be very difficult at this point. But it's your turn, pal.
All right, number 4. Well, this was a player, 17 years in the league. He 6'6", absolutely just a monster of a man, but he could not keep his nose clean. 4 World Series, got suspended 3 times for substance abuse. I'm not going to say what drug it was, but its initials are cocaine.
All
His
right, I'm gonna look it
baseball,
up.
his signed baseball is worth $130. Is Daryl Strawberry.
Ah,
Yep.
You just wanted this. You hated him. You didn't want to play against him. It's play with me or against me. You wanted to play with him. And even the Giants had him for a little while. And he
Yep.
just flamed out through the straw. So it's really a shame. Even they said he had a bout with cancer too. Daryl Strawberry.
His lookalike is Dino from the Flintstones. I don't know if you.
The long neck. Jonesy, number 4.
I've gone.
yeah.
Already gone.
Webby, number 4. Sorry.
I did that already.
I think you're.
Maybe
I think we're
I
done.
flamed out.
Maybe pull it down over your eyes, and we'll just move on to what you're drinking.
Woohoo! Hey, wait a minute. How come there's no theme music for what you're drinking?
How's that? So, we mentioned Dontrell Willis, friend and native of Alameda. So's Almanac, Alameda, California, one of the finest craft brewers in the country, and they're dumb enough to sponsor this show on a regular basis. So, they've got that going for them. So tonight, I personally am drinking the Porchlight Lager. It's part of their rotating lager series. This thing is delicious, full flavored, easy drinking lager. Really nice. So I know you guys are drinking different stuff, except for Jeff, who is drinking.
Kolsch, as always. Tried and true Kolsch.
That's a great beer.
That should just be your middle name.
Yep.
Jeff, have you tried the Diet Kolsch yet?
The Diet Kolsch? No.
Half the carbs and half the flavor.
Oh, you mean Kolsch Light?
Kolsch Light.
They don't make a Kolsch Light.
No.
I'm drinking the Rocktoberfest by Almanac.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
The last line on this advertisement is, "It's a party in a can, and it just might make you dance your arse off."
Ooh.
So guess what's coming later in the show?
What?
Terry's going to dance his arse off.
Well, you're drinking a Rocktoberfest. It's Rocktoberfest. Don't just drink it on Sunday. Cheers, everybody.
I am drinking the Flow West Coast Pale Ale.
Mm.
It's happy, chill, and hoppy. It is hopped with Simcoe and El Dorado. And this is my first time trying this, and I love it. I'm not a huge IPA fan, but I like this. This is great.
Oh, what do you have it to compare with?
I have it to compare with the coffee stouts and the watermelon pineapple sours. So
Don't forget the cherry sour nova.
yeah, cherry sour nova.
Hey, they're famous for that one.
And of course, the
Almanac.
Love Hazy is their most popular beer, their top seller out there. So that
Actually,
hazy IPA.
The Love Hazy is my favorite. So.
It's people rave about that one.
And what brew co is that?
Once again, Almanac Brewing, Alameda, California.
Yeah, we're not talking about other beers, Terry. We're not talking about Pabst or Budweiser right here. We're talking about Almanac.
Well, let's just don't interrupt.
Hey, we got a what you drinking comment in from a listener.
Hey guys, I'm an IPA fan and I'm drinking the Kolsch because it is very close to an ale rather than on the lager side. So tastes great, and as they say in Germany, das schmeckt.
Das schmeckt.
Gosh,
Thanks.
Dosh what?
hey,
Put in your own Dosh font.
Terry, you got some Schmecht on your.
Just give the corner a wipe. All right, enough of that. Before we just spiral completely out of control, we better move on to number 3. Go ahead, Rob Weber.
All right. I am again. I'll mention again that I'm a Cubs fan in case you guys have forgotten. Um, I watched this guy jump on the scene in 2002, and he was going to be the savior for my team. He could pitch and he could get anybody out. He was awesome. As the Cubs made their 2003 playoff run, he pitched in the famous Bartman game and pitched brilliantly. Won 18 games that year and was the stud for the Cubs along with Kerry Wood. Um, but then arm injuries started to get in the way. He had a couple mediocre years and then was out of baseball by 2006, or out of Major League Baseball. He didn't actually retire for another 7 years. He spent that in the minors trying to get back. Everybody wanted to give him a chance because he was a good person and he worked hard, but the arm never came back. And that's Mark Pryor. And Pryor has been a coach with the Dodgers since 2018. But you always wonder what could have been. Um, he won 42 games for the Cubs before the career ended. Um, and I always thought, that 2003 team was a very solid team, and that team could have stayed together for a longer period of time. They might have had a longer run at the playoffs, but oh well. So
Yeah,
Mark Pryor's my number 3.
I don't think they would have had any longer run for the playoffs.
Well, if that's your
They're the
opinion.
Cubs.
Yeah, exactly.
They had one run in 2016. They haven't had one since.
Oh, wait, when was their last run?
Yeah, 2016.
In the
As I've told you guys
1800s.
repeatedly, they've won the World Series. They don't ever have to win it again. I can always point back to 2016. So that's good.
Just like all those other people that go, oh yeah, 1908, we were champs.
Yeah, that was 8 years out of the 1800s.
I said during my lifetime.
Oh,
All right. Jeff, get me out of this.
So I was going to go with Sinjo. So I'll throw one of my alternates in there instead. And I'm disappointed. He still may have a great career. I'm just disappointed he hasn't made it yet. So we can't see him on TV all the time. So we can't say his name all the time. So we can't celebrate his life all the time. Seth Beer.
Oh yes. Cheers to beer.
To Seth.
Where is Seth now? I think the Diamondbacks cut him loose.
I think so. I haven't looked up to see where he picked up with. He's got to be picked up because he was a decent AAA player. So he's going to, at worst case scenario, is going to end up on the East Coast in AA somewhere.
Well, and a smart minor league team picks him up strictly for the marketing reasons alone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's beer night, beer shirt night.
All right, Terry.
all right. Number 3. My number 3 played with the Royals, the White Sox, the Angels. He won the Heisman Trophy in 1985. He's an all-star in the NFL and the MLB.
Took one of mine.
Unfortunately, his baseball's worth $50. He had in 1994, he had a hip injury, took him out of all sports eventually. It was just a sad. He was such a super athlete, Bo Jackson. It is, if you haven't guessed already.
Yeah.
And just a real shame. Bono's disappointment. I'm sorry.
The only outfielder to ever run on an outfield wall.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he hooked the. Was it at the Coliseum? He hooked the pad and just started climbing up.
I think it was at Royals. I think
was it at Royals?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really hooked it and jumped way up there. That mark stayed on the back pad for a long time, or all day, all that game at least. All right, that's my number 3, Bo Jackson. Robbie?
All right. I'm going to go with I had a couple here, but I think I'm going to go with a pitcher for the Cleveland Indians in the 1950s. They had already had Bob Feller and Bob Lemon, very formidable two guys in the old days of a four-man pitching staff. And this young kid came up and won the Rookie of the Year. He was the first pitcher to ever average more than a strikeout per inning. He looked like he had the world in front of him. Apparently, he was a super likable, smart guy. Everybody liked him. And Yogi Berra and a bunch of other Hall of Famers have said he was the best left-handed pitcher ever. Unfortunately, he was hit by a line drive in the face off the bat of Gil McDougald, and Herb Score never was quite the same after that. He he pitched for a couple of years and then hit that line drive. And what I was reading is that when he got hit in the face, Gil McDougald, the guy who hit the ball, the third baseman, pretty much everybody on the infield ran straight for the pitcher to go help him, and it cracked a bunch of bones in his face and messed up his retina, and he was never the same. But it has a happy ending because he tried to get through and pitch a little longer, but his eyesight slowly deteriorated. But he was able to go on and become the longest tenured Cleveland Indians broadcaster. He broadcast with them for like 37 years after that. So his love of baseball remained the same, and his respect and everything within the league was there and benefited him. So it's got a happy ending for as bad as it was.
Excellent.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So who's left here?
I think that's it for round 3.
That was it for round 3? Wow. As Yogi Berra would say, we're lost, but we're making good time. All right, so let's just dive into number 2. I'll start with number 2.
All right.
This is like my number 4 pick, electrifying pitcher. Back in the days of 3 network TV channels, different networks were competing for the rights to baseball, and this guy was a main reason for that. Mark the Bird Fidrich.
Oh, yeah.
Fidrich came out and he was entertaining as hell to watch. He was fun. He was funny. I remember one of the first national TV games where they showed him. Ron LaFleur made a great catch out in center field, and Fidrich ran all the way from the mound out to center field to shake LaFleur's hand. He was doing that kind of stuff all the time. And somebody asked him one time if he could have anybody to his house for dinner, who would it be? And he said Mickey Stanley, who was a teammate with him on the Tigers. And he goes, "Why Mickey Stanley?" He goes, "Well, he's never been to my house." I mean, everything was great about him. And then a couple of years later, he was pitching and he felt his arm just. Actually, it was the next season. He started off pretty good in the second season, and his arm went dead one game. That's how he kept saying it. My arm is dead. My arm just went dead. And it was a shoulder injury. Apparently, he tore his rotator cuff, and that was not discovered until 1985. So he continued to try to pitch on it, rehabbed on it. Tigers finally let him go, and the Red Sox signed him. He was a Massachusetts kid, but it just never came back for him. And it was very disappointing to see that somebody that was so good and so fun and so perfect for the game was lost. We didn't get that joy for years and years to come. So
They have a mini documentary about him, his short career, and
right.
they have a lot of footage, film. They have a lot of film on him, and he's just a really fun-loving. He's so happy to be out there because he couldn't believe he was able to be out there.
Oh yeah.
Every second was he was living it up in every second.
Yep.
He's a regular old guy too.
Yeah.
So they play that doc on MLB Network every once in a while. He passed away a few years ago in a farming accident.
Well, I was trying not to go there.
That's disappointing.
I know. But
Thanks,
the
Dr. Death.
documentary they talk to the family members. They get him together in a local restaurant and they talk about his life and his career. And of course, MLB will always play that Monday night baseball game. I think it's the Tigers against the Angels, or maybe it's the Yankees. I don't know. And Cosell is the announcer for the game because Cosell wanted to be there when Fidrich was pitching, so they made that happen. he needed to be around the spectacle of Mark Fidrich. So,
Well, I mean, the guy made what Time, Newsweek, and Sports Illustrated front cover all in the same month,
yeah, yeah.
and those were all weekly publications back then. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he was a big deal. So yeah, the bird. Glad we had him for what time we had him, but man, that would have been something fun to watch for years.
Yep.
All right, Jonesy, why don't you go next?
All right. Throwing in a replacement again because I had Bo Jackson at number 2. It's a good pick. I left this guy off my list because I figured somebody was going to be talking about him now. So hopefully I'm not stealing somebody's. But another guy who had a very strong career and could have done a lot more had he not gotten hurt on the field twice. First by a pitch in the forearm that broke his arm, then a pitch to the face. Tony, and I'm going to screw the name up, Caligiero.
Oh God, it's not even
Can-
close.
Tony Canigliaro.
Yes, indeed.
Man.
I just remember there was a restaurant bar we used to go to, and they had stuff all over the men's room of like old Sports Illustrateds. And right there, prominent, was that Sports Illustrated one with him with his just whole side of his face all messed up. And he tried mightily. He even tried to pitch after that. He tried everything he could, but his vision was never the same, and he just couldn't hit like he used to.
There's nothing worse than get up to bat knowing someone has a bad eye.
Yeah, they said that his vision actually had a blind spot in the middle of his vision in that eye. So he could see around, but not in the middle where he was looking. That's not that's no bueno.
That's not good.
That's no bueno.
So he was after his career, he was a sports reporter here in the Bay Area for years.
Yep.
Not a very good one, but he was, he enjoyed his job. But he used to talk about the fact that sometimes he would see multiple baseballs.
Yeah.
So when he was trying to get back into the game, he would see 2. He did have one great year after the injury, but he says, it was just really hard to concentrate on the pitches coming in.
Yeah.
When you're seeing multiple pitches.
Did he get hit in his left eye or his right eye? And was he a righty or lefty?
The eye that was closest to the batter, I think he was a right-handed batter, right? So that would have been
his left eye.
Yeah.
What side of the urinal was he on?
All right, Webby, you're up.
Well, right. I mean, not only that. Sorry, Rob. It's just that to think what could happen again if you didn't see it. He didn't have the full vision in that eye, and it was going to be late on a fastball, and he's going to get a hit in the head again.
Yep.
So it's hard to stand in there. Well, sorry, Rob.
That's all right. You get one pass, and after that,
we won't interrupt you anymore.
He's like a snowball rolling down a hill tonight, folks.
Gaining speed.
So you guys remember Dimitri Young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we used to call him Demet Hook. He was one of my favorite outfields of all time. Dimitri Young in center, Dimitri Young in left, Michael Frank in center, and Chris Steins in right. As Marty Brenneman said, Young, Frank, and Steins from left to right. Yeah. So Dimitri had a younger brother named Delman. Mm-hmm. And Delman, we were told over and over and over again, was going to be way better than Dimitri ever was. And he had power that nobody had seen before to all fields. He was going to be the man. And Delman did make it to the major leagues and played with the Rays, and I think he played with the Tigers in the World Series against the Giants. But he was never that big of a threat. He was strikeout prone and couldn't play the field, so he became a designated hitter for teams who probably had better options than him. So Delman Young is my number 2 pick.
I think that's a pretty good pick.
Yeah. All right. Did that finish the round or what?
I believe it did.
Nope.
Oh, nope.
I have a
Terry
number
still
2.
up? Terry.
My number 2 is a number 2.
Come on, Tiger.
Well, this player played for the Pirates, played for the Giants. He's not on my list because he wasn't a great player. He was indicted on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. You with me?
Who could this be?
His ball's worth $500. No Hall of
The
Fame.
kids love that.
No Hall of Fame because of PED use. I'm sorry, as much as I loved watching him and him contributing to the new stadium, Barry Bonds, disappointing.
Yes, I would have to agree. It's more of a character thing than an ability thing. But yeah. Mm-hmm. You going to disagree, Rob? Go ahead. You can disagree.
It's not worth it. I would have gone Bobby Bonilla, but whatever.
Oh, that was one of my honorable mentions. All right, that's my number 2. Are we done with the number 2s?
That is perfect.
Right. Number
so
1.
What's happening next, Rob?
So from here on in, now we are not here on in, but at this moment, we have to turn it over to Rob Weber to get an update on what's happening with Mic'd Up, the gracious hosts of this app that you're watching us on right now. Rob, take it away.
And if you guys don't interrupt me, I'm going to try to get this under 3 minutes. I think I can do it.
3. Right? I told you I can do it in 2.
All right. Again, thank you to the folks at Mic'd Up for helping us create the show on the platform. We're all having a great time. And of course, you can see us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific. Just download the Mic'd Up app on either Android or iPhone platforms or Apple platforms and sign in, create yourself a user ID, and then you can comment within the show. You can leave comments up to 30 seconds long, and we will respond to them if we want to. And most of the times we want to. We've got a lot of good comments tonight. The way you comment in the app is to hit the microphone at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be given 30 seconds to leave a comment about the topic of the evening. Or, as Rob would always like us to do, you can tell us what you're drinking. All right. Mic'd Up has several other shows that are currently running on varying schedules. First one I'll talk about is Bips Blips, which is Bip Roberts, former major leaguer and Comcast personality. He'd been doing a regular show. He's been off the platform for a little bit, but we're going to get him back here soon. And he's going to be talking about baseball, current events, and during his playing days. Bip is great about replying to any of the comments and questions that viewers have. So look for him in the app in upcoming shows. If you want to see any of his older shows, they are in the archive section, which is to the right. Another one is Jim Darby. My friend Jim is a former Easton sports executive who also sold Mizuno products. Jim knows all of the big names in baseball and football from that era. Pete Rose, Joe Montana, John Elway, close with all of them. And Jim has written a couple of books, including one called Bears in the Bigs about Cal Bears who have gone on to play in the major leagues. Jim is a great storyteller, and he does a 30 to 40 minute show bi-weekly. He should be next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Coach G and Elite Mindsets. That's Craig Giannino. Craig has delayed the first show that he's planning to perform. Looks like it's been moved to next week. He is the 2012 Central Coast Section Baseball Coach of the Year and is currently a coach in the Cape Cod League back east. And most of his show is about the mental aspect of the game and what you can do to improve your game independent of your physical ability. Another one, Hall of Fame conversations. This is John Rieger and Barry Smith. Barry is a former NFL player, and John is a teaching PGA pro. But what they have in common is the Florida Sports Hall of Fame. And they have various shows where they interview Hall of Fame members to talk about their past careers and what they're doing now. If you look in the upcoming schedule, the long-awaited Wade Boggs show has been rescheduled, and it's on that list. So I believe that's going to be later this week. The Rick Barry Show, Hall of Fame player in the NBA and ABA. Uh-oh, am I running out of time? Rick Barry and his co-host Cyrus are doing a show, and Rick will give you his opinion on all of the NBA sports topics that you want to talk about in the game today. He's a good source for Warriors news, as is Cyrus. If you ask his opinion, he'll give it, whether you like it or not. So look for Rick's show. And the last one on the list, well, I've got two more actually. The Pitcher's Mind with Greg Moore and Mike Nisko. Mike runs the Pitcher Shop on YouTube, and Greg is a coach with 24 years of experience in college baseball. And they talk about what a pitcher needs to think about on the mound, regardless of their age or ability. Great show for all levels. Lastly, let's talk about our friends on Yankees Coast to Coast, or Coast to Coast Yankees. Our friends Mike Miller and Adam Schneider. They are hosting a new show that kicked off last week, and it's all about the Yankees. Specifically, they're talking right now about what the Yankees need to do to be better in 2024. Last week was some fiery conversation about Brian Cashman's recent comments, and this week they are talking about what the Yankees need to do on the pitching staff, whether that be the starting pitching or the bullpen. So look for their show. I believe it's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific. All right, that's all I got. I went over 3.5 minutes.
Well, we got a comment in a follow up because we have a very learned listening audience. So JC calls in.
Seth Beer was DFA'd by Arizona, but he accepted an assignment to the Sod Poodles. Hit 3 home runs on September 1st, so I think he's still with the Sod Poodles.
All right.
Just an update.
Go Sod Poodles.
Thank you, JC.
Who wouldn't want a Sod Poodle jersey with beer on the back? All right. Well, with all of that, that brings us around the corner to number one. So, any of you mooks feel like starting?
Sure.
All right, Jonesy, you have the floor.
When you're growing up a baseball fan in the 80s and you start getting into baseball cards really serious, and then the baseball card market takes off to the point of oversaturation and over-obsession over every little thing, there is no bigger disappointment than the card that you hoarded that was supposed to be worth hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars, which today may be worth $2. and that is the heralded rookie card of Mets prospect Craig Jeffries.
Oh,
You couldn't go anywhere in baseball and talk about baseball for those years without talking about whether or not you had a Greg Jeffries rookie card and which one and how good it was and how much it was going to be worth. And then they printed so many of them, they weren't worth practically the card they were printed on. They oversaturated the market with it. And he had a decent career, but he was never going to live up to, I mean, unless he was Willie Mays' second coming and had 700 home runs in the first 10 years of his career, he was never going to live up to the hype that they put on him. So that's my number one, Greg Jeffries, specifically his rookie card.
so that sounds like a total financial disappointment. Is that what this is, Jeff?
No, because I didn't invest that much. It was just
Okay.
the hype behind it.
Yeah, this is an accountant talking, folks.
It's
you hear
not
him?
like
He
I
goes-
spent hundreds of dollars to collect them. I just was like, okay, that's gonna be worth something someday. And that's what everybody says. You have to have. You have to have. You have to have. Do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? Okay,
Your Honor,
now what?
Your Honor, I'd like to refer back to his phrase where he said, "It wasn't the player, it was the card that
Yes.
disappointed me."
Let's just say the entire '80s baseball card market disappointed me.
Still got a bunch of Canseco's too, don't you?
No, McGuire's.
Okay.
All right, Robbie.
Number one.
More volume. More.
Go, Joe Charbonneau. Go, Joe Charbonneau. Cleveland had suffered through many, many bad years of baseball. 1980, this guy came out of nowhere. He set the world on fire. Another likable guy, kind of his own man, weird character. Won the Rookie of the Year, I believe. Yeah. He hit 289, 23 homers, 87 RBIs out of nowhere. I mean, this was a bad team, and they were so bad, Andre Thornton got hurt, which, God bless Andre Thornton. That was probably a smart move on his part to not play that year. But they were really, really bad. But he's the first guy I remember dyeing his hair. He could drink beer through his nose. So, I mean, he would fit in great on this show. He also he famously fixed a broken nose with a pair of pliers and a bunch of Jack Daniels. He was everything like this that the town of Cleveland needed at that time in the world of baseball.
I got this.
Yeah.
Everything that they needed.
He could open beer bottles with his eye socket.
Yep.
Oh, I can do
And
that.
like to do it on TV. He was everything that Cleveland needed. He was the right guy in the right place. Then the next year in spring training, he slid headfirst into a base, messed up his back, and basically was out of baseball within 2 years. So poor old Go Joe Charbonneau. I mean, he had that punk rock song that we played, and he even appeared as one of the teammates on the New York Knights in The Natural. But Joe Charbonneau, man, that was the right guy in the right place, the right time, and it just, in Cleveland fashion, it didn't work.
How disappointing.
Terry?
All right, I'll go. Well, this man tried to defect from Cuba to Mexico 13 times and failed. He played for the Dodgers, played for the Reds.
I think I know
Cal-
who this is.
Cal Daniels.
His ball's only worth $120. He's an all-star jackass.
Oh, I know who this is.
Yeah.
This is your favorite player, isn't it?
Puig. I asked my significant other, who's the most disappointing player? She says, Puig. Puck. Fuig. That's my number one. He should be. He's the number two of the number ones.
That is,
Let's see, who else did he play for? I can't read my writing.
yeah, he was on my honorable mentions as just being, I mean, to be disappointing in your career and as a human being, you know, he's
He's
got
an
the
all-star jackass, like I said.
Yep.
He
Yep.
played for the. I wrote down Indians, but I scribbled it out and wrote over it the politically correct team name. That's why
Cleveland. He played for Cleveland.
He played for Cleveland. That's
He
why
couldn't
I
land a job in
read
either
that.
half of Ohio.
All right, who has not gone?
Weber's bringing us home tonight.
Webby.
All right. I believe, and we can argue about this if you want to later, but I believe this may be the worst free agent signing of all time. I believe he has been out of baseball for the last 3 years, but his contract just ended this year. Chris Davis of the Baltimore Orioles, who back in 2015 had a 47 home run season and played a decent first base and DH and the batting average was around 260-ish, and so that earned him a 7-year, $161 million contract with the Orioles. He would become one of the top three paid players in the game after that.
Yeah, he was disappointing. His agent wasn't.
Oh no, his agent scored big. Move on to 2016. Chris's batting average drops down into the 220s with still 38 home runs. That's not too bad. And then everything caved in. In 2018, he set a new major league record for the lowest batting average for a player with a league minimum number of at bats. He for a season batted 168.
Wow.
At one point, he was challenging a record set years earlier for the most consecutive at bats without a base hit. He crashed through the record of 0 for 46 and set the new record of 54 consecutive at bats without a base hit.
Man.
Now, I've seen all of you guys play, and you're good for your age, but I'm guessing that even one of us could probably get a base hit in 54 at bats against the major league pitching just by closing our eyes and having the ball hit the bat or something like that. I couldn't believe how bad he had become. So the 168, you're thinking, oh my God, what are they going to do? So the next year they benched him. So they got a $23 million player sitting on the bench. They got him playing occasionally, and his batting average went down to 115. Of course, he wasn't playing very much.
He didn't hit the minimum amount of at bats.
Right. So then they at this point in time he was striking out close to 40% of his at bats. And if you watch him on the at bats, he's missing some of these pitches by 2 feet. They're in the dirt, and he's swinging as if the pitch is in the middle of the plate. So he's completely messed up at this point. And suddenly, the Orioles discovered he had a back injury, or they created one. I don't know what happened there, but he was not to be seen after that, especially after he challenged the manager to a fight after being pulled in the middle of a game after striking out 4 times. So Chris Davis, in my opinion, the worst free agent signing of all time. So he's the number one most disappointing player on my list.
What else is amazing is nobody made an error when he was up to bat.
That's correct.
He's thrown out every time there's some sort of a hit into the field.
Oh, that's funny. Well, we got a slew of comments here, so I think we probably should dive into them,
Sure.
unless you object, in which case I will say I don't care and override you anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
5, Rich Murray, Giants, tout, as good as his brother Eddie, played 2 seasons. Number 4, Delman Young, Tampa Bay, number 1 pick 2003, didn't play that well. Number 3, Clint Hartung, New York Giants, supposed to be the new Babe Ruth pitching and hitting, pitched 5 seasons, 29 and 29. Number 2, Joe Charbonneau, Indians, Rookie of the Year, 1980, played his last game in 1982. Number 1 coming up.
Good list.
I tell you, these 30
Good
seconds
list.
goes by fast.
I mean, Rich Murray, I guess as a player it would be a disappointment, but as a human being, he should not be on this list.
He's awesome. Yeah.
He's a great guy. And
Number 1, Drungo Hazewood, Baltimore Orioles. Minors 97 home runs, 107 stolen bases, 6 seasons. In Baltimore in September 1980, 0 for 5. Never saw the majors again. Could have had something to do with the fact in 1981 he was the fastest Oriole, but he was sent down by Earl Weaver. He cussed out Earl Weaver and Frank Robinson and tipped over the spread when he left.
There was ham everywhere.
Never to be seen again.
And I missed one from JC, so I apologize. This is a what you drinking comment that he slipped in here.
Appropriate for what you drinking, JC is having a Crispy Girl Pilsner. Just to show I'm secure in my manhood. It's actually quite nice, crisp, with just a hint of hops.
Girl.
And very tasty.
All right.
Prost, boys.
Prost.
Now, before you mooks make any comments about him having a crispy girl, it's a beer by Almanac. Rethink your thoughts.
It is an Almanac beer.
It is an Almanac beer. It's mostly sold in kegs. Occasionally they'll release it in can, but they usually have it on tap at the tap room and for select restaurants and bars.
What's
So I'm
the
told
variety?
they don't have it in cans, and that JC has a keg at his house right now.
Yeah.
or he's in Alameda.
Yeah, that could be it.
Well,
Crispy Girl Pilsner.
Thank you very much, JC, for the
All right, Big Juicy's got his list.
Number 5, Anthony Rendon, LA Angels, has a big $245 million contract he signed a few years ago and has been mostly on the IL. Number 4, Yasiel Puig, phenom from Cuba, now playing in the Mexican leagues. Number 3, Luis Severino, Yankee pitcher, Cy Young contender back in 2017, today with an ERA of 8 almost, and who knows what the Yankees will do with him. Number 1 and 2 coming up.
They ought to Severino him from the contract rolls.
Oh, I get it. That was a play on words, right?
See what I did there? Yeah. All right, here's his number 2 and number 1.
My number 2 is Darryl Strawberry. Great player, but just couldn't take the pressure of being a superstar and all the adulation that came his way. Number 1, I'm thinking of this guy every July 1st as he receives his $1.2 million check, Bobby Bonilla. And also thinking of the Mets, who unfortunately invested in a Bertie Madoff fund to fund the contract with Bobby Bonilla.
The accountant loved that one. All right. So now Miller 15 from the Yankees Coast to Coast show here on the Mic'd Up Network. I like this cross-pollination.
Okay, guys, for various reasons, I'm going to go with Ben Grieve, Steve Howe, Josh Hamilton, Brian Taylor, and Steven Strasburg. Some are injury, some are drug-induced, some are bad baseball players, but those are my 5 I'm going with. Almost all were high picks. Speak to you soon.
Sounds like a
This
COVID.
is Miller 15 from Coast to Coast Baseball.
All right.
Miller 15 sounds like he's got a cold.
So if I remember right, Brian Taylor got in a bar fight and got injured and could never pitch after that.
Brilliant.
He was going to be the next coming of God, a left-handed pitcher. Bar fight ended it. We know about Strasburg. Hamilton was the drug addict. Howe even played for the San Jose Bees here because that was the unaffiliated single A team that all of the recovering drug addicts played for at the time, the San Jose Bees. So Howe was here for a while. You guys remembered Brian Taylor at all?
Vaguely remember
never
the story of a
remembered.
pitcher in a bar fight, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
All right. Vonnie's checking in. It looks like she's got a lot of opinions.
Okay, not my favorite topic you guys have done, but here's my list. Number 5, Barry Zito. If you know me, you know how I feel about Barry Zito and how I feel he just didn't perform the way that he should have performed and we were expecting him to. Number 4, Jose Canseco. Started out strong, as everybody knows, became quite the loser and buffoon.
Those are good choices, man.
All right. For somebody that didn't like the topic, just has a strong opinion.
Continuing on, number 3, Darryl Strawberry. Had so much potential, everything was great, and then just plummeted. Number 2, Pete Rose. Big disappointment in a superstar, just with gambling issues, gambled against his team. You just don't do that, bud. I'm sorry, I'm a believer that he does not belong in the Hall of Fame for all of that. And number 1. And my number 1 is all the stupid, ugly City Connect jerseys out there. Huge disappointment across the board. Why are we doing these? Those and the sponsor patches are awful. I'm lumping them together as number 1 as a disappointment across the board. I know they're not players, but I've vented long enough. Thanks, guys.
Get used to it. All your Major League Baseball jerseys are going to look like NASCAR jerseys in about 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the NBA now? They've even a bunch of teams have painted the floor to the City Connect look for their City Connect jersey. It's ridiculous. Oh, Terry's got a Pete Rose signed copy.
So I went to a baseball camp in Florida. Pete Rose came in and he was the speaker. I did not break rule number 1. I did not break rule number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
5 days later, I am guilty.
What are the odds that you would have got a book like that? Thank you.
Terry, how much is baseball worth?
Oh, let me just look that one up for you. It'll be quick. Pete Rose.
Pete Rose's book is what, priced $5? Same as his ball?
Not even worth the paper it's written on.
While Terry's looking that up, we have one more comment from Anthony D'Albora. Hopefully I said that right, or it's D'Albora. Well, that's weird. Shows it's playing.
Billy Bean, question mark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
which Billy Bean?
Billy Bean, the former GM of the A's, was going to be the next coming of God as a player, I believe, for the Mets and Twins.
Yeah.
And was never much of anything. But he had all the tools. So as a player, he was a huge disappointment. But I guess as a baseball executive, he made up for that. So yeah, good pick, Anthony.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about him, but yes, that's he would have had a very disappointing career as a player. Yeah.
That's a very good call.
All
Absolutely.
Right, here's a sidebar on Pete Rose. There's a signed Pete Rose ball, and he also writes "Hit King" under it. That's $106. And then the other baseball here sign, it says, "I'm sorry, I bet on baseball." Pete Rose. That one's worth $176.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
All right. Well,
That's
I'm kind of tired of Terry looking up balls on the internet, so I thought maybe now we could go to our honorable mentions. So I have two honorable mentions. I think we talked about this guy once before, Steve Dalkowski,
Oh yeah.
who routinely threw 110 miles an hour and the fastest pitch clocked ever in a game at 115. And apparently he did it more than once, but the guy had no control. Rob, you have the stat for this one.
That's the guy that in Bakersfield he threw a fastball through the backstop and broke all the wood, went right through. He's also the model. Him and Ryan Dern are the model for those wild pitchers in movies that have glasses and look like they can't see when it's raining. Yeah, he's the model.
Well, didn't he have that? He had that one game where he threw 24 strikeouts, 18 walks, and 6 wild pitches.
Yeah, and hit a couple of batters, and yeah, it was amazing. You know, the guys were trembling going up to the plate.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
wild thing.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they like the guy had their first at bat against them, and like before their second at bat, they go, I think I have a cold. I can't. I don't have any energy left to hit. So Dalkowski, and the other one, Steve Blass,
Oh
who was
yeah,
the Pirates' best pitcher for 3 or 4 years in the late '60s, going into the early '70s. Helped them win a World Series. Won 19 games and pitched in the All Star game in 1972, and then 1973 he just couldn't hit the target anymore. He could not hit home plate for the life of him. I mean, just for no reason. He was a young guy. He just lost the ability to throw the baseball for no injury, no physical, clearly something mental or a neurological issue, but he just completely lost it. It was gone, and that was it. End of
Yeah.
his career. And he was a
Yeah.
great pitcher. So,
How
anybody else?
disappointing.
I just got a bunch of guys that, they didn't have huge expectations. I just was hoping for more out of them. A handful of Giants guys like Nate Scherholz, Darren Ruff, Matt Duffy, guys who I really wanted to see succeed, and they just couldn't quite do it on a consistent basis enough to be more successful than they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Scherholtz went on to have a couple of good years with the Cubs, and then went right back to his old ways.
Yeah, and Duffy played admirably with Tampa Bay for a little while, but he was just a rover. I thought he could have been a really good starting third baseman for a lot of different teams, and he just couldn't quite put up the numbers to do it.
Yeah. One of the guys I thought about was Milton Bradley. The guy had all kinds of talent, but just was an angry person. And other teams used that to their advantage. They knew they could tip him in the wrong direction, and he'd go off on an umpire or an opposing player or even his own teammates because he thought that he had been, slighted in some way, shape, or form. But great talent, but just couldn't control his temper. You wonder what somebody like that is doing today. Probably, a reverend at a church. I have no idea.
The broadcasters overhype people too.
Yeah.
So then we get overexcited, and then he doesn't perform, and then we're disappointed.
Like Gary Brown?
Like Brandon Bell.
I knew that was going to be in there somewhere.
The baby giraffe. He's great giant, but he's only great for the year before his new contract.
It's funny, and every team's got those guys. Like
enough said.
The one guy I always think of is the Cubs, Jerome Walton. Big, huge, almost 300, hit almost 300, 20 homers, 80 RBIs, like 20 stolen bases, and one season, and then the next year, nothing, off the map, and he was out of baseball in 3 years. I mean, I don't understand how that happens, but it clearly does on a regular basis.
We used to talk about this guy in the Yankees that came up, Tom Tresh.
Oh yeah,
We look at his baseball card. For every year of his career, for I think 7 or 8 years, each year was successively worse. So his first year was his best. Then it got a little worse all the way down to year 8 when they said, "Okay, you're off to the Tigers and then out of baseball." Some guys, it's the league adjusts to them and they don't adjust back. So
yeah.
By the
All right.
way,
Any others?
Brennan Belt's baseball's worth $164.
Thank you.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of another show. It's been a good night here on Highlights from Lowlifes. We're glad you joined us. Make sure you tune in next week. We are doing a pre-Thanksgiving night show, and during the week, you can leave your comments during the week on our app on our show. If you want to go ahead and get your top 5 list in, and be sure to join us here again next week. Follow us on the app, on Facebook, on Instagram, and all the social media things. And until then, we'll see you next time.